The first recommendation, and I think the most important recommendation from the Youth Programs Group, is that either the city or a joint city-county commission be established for youth. We believe that there are a number of important initiatives that can be identified and that can be implemented over time, but without some coordinating force to really identify and become, if you will, a clearinghouse for information and identifying and highlighting things to the public, that we won't get the progress that we need. Mayor Fernandez has in principle agreed to this request. And I think some of the county commissioners are enthusiastic. We want to hear what everyone has to say later today, but this youth commission, as you'll hear later, is really a centerpiece in what we're proposing, because we believe that there must be a way to help coordinate all of these diverse efforts throughout the community. And you'll see here, again, outlined in writing a great deal of the rationale and how we feel that might be done. The next recommendation is for the gathering centers for youth, really. Again, a number of really excellent things being done. Rhinos is a very good example of something that is probably the best gathering place at the moment in the community, at least in the evenings, doing a number of things with computers, also creating an atmosphere where there is some adult supervision, but the children don't feel as though they're imposed upon. It's something they want to do. One of the notions that needs to be discussed is whether there should be an attempt to identify one youth center that would be comprehensive in scope and that would be able to house a variety of different activities, or whether there should be a variety of, well, multiple youth centers throughout the community, with the notion there being that no one youth center is going to appeal to everyone, and we need to hit all of the different elements and interest groups with the youth. We are recommending, well, the evident question here is funding. And the key impediment to funding is certainly going to be finding the real estate. That's going to be the largest part of any budget. I wrote a guest editorial as part of this process in the paper, which is in the appendix here, asking for input from the community and asking to identify any possible location or locations for such a youth center or centers. Nothing has been forthcoming yet, but if the youth commission is enacted, the hope is that we can identify some real estate so that this can be moved forward in a more comprehensive manner. But again, the notion here is very imperative that there must be a place after school in the evenings for youth to congregate, if at all possible. The next recommendation here is mentoring program coordination forums. Actually, it looks to me like the next one here is the parenting resource. I've got a master list that doesn't correspond to this. The parenting resource information distribution really has two aspects. The first is identifying the resources in the community, and the second is then disseminating that data. The best resource so far that we have seen is this Sunrise Parenting Place Guide. Sunrise spent over a year and with two different people doing a lot of research, identifying for each different type of activity all of the providers in our community, their phone numbers, a list of the services and the costs. This is all set forth here. There's quite a prestigious committee that has been on this and reviewed it. It is actually, this commitment from Sunrise, the result of what I'll call a clarion call from Vi, Telly, and Faro to recognize that gangs do exist here in Bloomington, that there is a youth problem, we can't be complacent. So Sunrise has really focused on this. The other aspect of this guide is for each of the different notions, whether it's gang involvement, senior care, latchkey children, there are a series of questions that each parent should ask themselves. We're not saying what the answers are, but these are the questions, so that if a parent has this type of problem in the home, they'll know what to do and where to go to have the right information given to them. There's also, well, this is the information, the best we can do. This will be on the web. This will be updated annually. We want to solicit additions to this database. So this is your baseline. Then how to disseminate it. There are a variety of ideas, one of which is to create parenting programs with local employers. The Sunrise Parenting Program is the best example. There's a brown bag lunch almost weekly on either wellness or a parenting issue. We've purchased a variety of professionally made videos on drug abuse, on youth violence prevention, all of this aimed at prevention, not intervention, which is a little too late in many cases. And we've really tried to encourage that. I was the keynote speaker at the Chamber of Commerce 2 weeks ago, and we're trying to really get a lot of businesses in the community involved at a grassroots level in making this kind of information available. There will certainly be other ways to do that. This can certainly be improved, but we need to do something. The notion that it takes a village to raise a child is a correct notion, we believe, and the question therefore is ways to disseminate this type of data to the people that need it. We'll look forward to looking at other recommendations in that regard. The mentoring program coordination forums. There are currently over 30 mentoring programs here in Bloomington. And one of the things we tried to do with the youth programs was really understand the different types of youth that we need to address as a community. It may be easier with, in many cases, to help people who want to help themselves, but what we will call the at-risk youth are a different and special type of problem. Many things that need to be done, but mentoring, among others, is probably the single biggest thing that can be done to help many of these at-risk youth. That's the notion. And you'll see here a program or a list of suggestions to bring together the Community and Family Resources Department, and again, representatives from all of the different mentoring groups to really enter into a coordinated program. Wherever there are mentoring groups that have someone to follow up, a social worker who can really work to see if there's an effective dialogue being created between the big brother and the little brother, if you will. These are the ones that are the most successful. This is what we'd like to try to work with. The support piece for that is a coordinated mentoring training program. Because there are certain principles of mentoring that we really got to understand, make the mentoring programs much more successful. And if we have a coordinated process of working with the different mentoring, then we believe that many of the people who are going to act as mentors can come together, receive a certain amount of training, which will make the whole process much, much, much more effective. So we feel that this is a very important plank, if you will, in the platform here. And again, really the notion that mentoring is probably the single most important thing we can do to address at-risk youth. And I think later, as we open this up to each of these recommendations, that's something we clearly need to ask. What else can we do for at-risk children? Community youth information boards. Again, the notion is many things are happening which are very, very positive. How do you disseminate that information? There are a number of recommendations here for the community youth information boards to act as one of the ways to disseminate that particular information. We think that those can be used effectively at Rhinos, Mall, the YMCA, city government, county government, school corporations, and selected downtown locations, and of course involving the media. If we can make the youth aware, in addition to the parents, of all of the resources that we have available here and what is happening, then we think we can get people more involved. A youth exposition, same type of process. How do you disseminate information? How do you connect people? Last year we had the youth Palooza, is that what it's called? And it was very successful. But the notion is to expand on this annual exposition and perhaps make it a even broader mission, where you not only bring together all of the groups that are involved with youth programs and facilitating youth issues, but you also bring together some of the prospective employers and make it a bit of a jobs fair. Again, for me, Perry Metz actually, from IU here, said something early on in this process that I thought was important. Many of the freshmen at Indiana University who don't follow through their freshman year or who ultimately drop out do so probably because they haven't found some support group, some identity that helps them to really center themselves with the winds that buffet youth today. And I think those same issues need to be addressed for the high school youth as well, youth at all levels here. And the attempt to disseminate a lot of this information, whether it's the youth centers, the expositions, or the bulletin boards, is a way to allow the youth to stimulate their imagination to see what else is happening here in the community, and to try to connect in a meaningful way with others who have similar types of interests. The Indiana University Student Group Volunteer Guide is again a way to try to connect the town and gown, if you will, to recognize that there are many resources at the university that can be tapped. This really exists. It's just a way of better focusing it and bringing it together and trying to increase the way that this can work together. The plan is very simple, with the Bloomington Volunteer Network contacting agencies and groups in Bloomington to inform them of the guide and the fact that there are resources at the university that need to be tapped. Here again, a question of finding ways to better coordinate existing programs. A coordinated school volunteer program. There's really a wealth of resources available in our community of retired or semi-retired adults who could provide a wealth of information and help to the schools. I think that Steve Bonchak Rock mentioned something that struck home the other day, and that is that many of the things we're talking about are important not to be lost sight of, but the main and really overwhelming influence on children is the school, finally. And therefore, how can we promote a better dialogue between parents and the school? How can we make the school a more child-friendly and parent-friendly environment? The same notion was brought up in terms of precisely some of the at-risk children whose parents may not be in the best situation to deal with the school corporation, don't know how to get into it, don't know how to address it. They feel disenfranchised. How do we promote that? And the notion there is really to look at different ways in which we can make the school corporation, or suggest that they become, more user-friendly. And that goes both to a volunteer program, which would give many different faces, and then I believe the next recommendation, if I'm right, which is to create some videos and web pages so that there could be more information disseminated about the school corporation, about its message, its mission, putting the face of some of the administrators there, putting together guides that would be given out to the school children so that if there is a problem, at least the parents would have a variety of options in terms of trying to get into the system. So, the rest, I think, is this the report then on the?
Yeah, the rest is the appendix, which includes information about the youth survey that the committee conducted with 520 youth in the middle school and in the high schools of Bloomington, as well as the Harmony School. And also some of our research into youth commissions in other cities. The editorial that Mike wrote, and then some information about the Sunrise Parenting Guide.
Perhaps we can give people a little bit of time to look over some of this data. Again, I wanted to go through very quickly an overview of the highlights of what we think are action plan items for more or less short or intermediate term implementation. I should also stress that we have in our notes probably at least 20 other ideas that we think have merit, but our recognition here is that without some central coordinating body and without some community support and in fact probably some charismatic leaders stepping forward who are interested in this type of function, that many of these other ideas won't really come to the light of day. And so we go back again to the Youth Commission, the notion being that this would be something that could always celebrate success, encourage further improvement as we look into other ideas that even go beyond the scope of what's here. So this scratches the surface, a lot more to come. I think what we'd like to do next then is ask the question, and you can phrase it a couple of different ways that Chuck Bonser asked. Have we made a mistake? Is there, first of all, I guess, is there anything on here that we feel shouldn't be on here? Have we missed the mark with any of these recommendations? Let's phrase the question that way first. Do any of these seem like they would be problematic?
No. The answer is no.
And I think the next question, the next two questions for me would be, what have we missed that would be important to add? And what are the comments about each of these in terms of ranking them as priorities? Which would you prefer to go on first, Kathy?
Maybe what we missed to start with.
Let's start then with what we've missed, because we've got to put that. And we can probably take the whole time on reviewing these particular ideas.
I'm not sure that we missed it because I haven't read the entire report, but one of the things that we noticed in juvenile court is that the peer group is so influential. And how we deal with shaping or changing or redirecting the group, or assisting a child, or saying to a child, get rid of all of your friends and pick new friends, which is sort of unrealistic, is very much of a challenge. So as we do this, I hope we will look at that factor, which, as we know, is a very important one. Maybe there are some activities where you could involve the group. So if you, And I just wanted to throw that in because I think it is very important as far as young people.
Show me his friends and I'll show you who he is.
Right.
Any specific thoughts, Lauren, on what we?
Well, it seems, when I was looking at, and I think the survey is wonderful, I haven't had a chance to look at it, the survey of the youth, because it's important to know what children think they need. And I noticed that one of the activities, and the one that has the charts on it, I don't know which page it's on, I'm getting close to it.
Page 39,
I'm sorry.
the charts, 39 and page 40.
I noticed that sports ranks very high.
It sure did.
And that's not only important because as a nation we seem to be so interested in sports, but it gives the young people an opportunity to demonstrate that they can excel in something and feel good about themselves. But it also can combine role modeling and mentoring if we pick it very carefully. So there's an awful lot that can be done, not just using sports, it's whatever the activities are. And generally speaking, the whole group of friends would be interested or could be interested in that same activity. So that's one way I think that we could approach it, is trying to arrange activities around people's interests. Sort of like getting people to read. If they don't like to read, then find out what they're interested in and give them a book about it, and I'll bet their reading skills will improve.
One statistic here that really floors me is that city parks, that you only have 9 people that use the city parks.
Right. Page 42, question 9.
So when you think about the county purchasing land recently, thinking about purchasing land for a park, and the city's parks and the budgets that we have in those areas, and just to have 9 kids who say they use them,
It's remarkable.
So
Children.
they have to look at what who was asked it, and that's pretty much the older kids too.
Well, this was middle school and high school,
I
cross-section.
know, but I mean,
Right.
high school doesn't tend to do that.
Right.
That's what I'm saying on middle school. That's what I'm saying. But what I think, and I have to apologize, I have to go to something else in a minute. One of the things that has struck me very much, and unfortunately we don't have it. So we had 5 middle schools. We finally created an intramural between the 5 middle schools, which we had 4, 5, 6, grades 4, 5, 6. And I felt that was a real positive, because the kids could stay in our community, participate around, and whether it was, baseball, soccer, I don't know, doesn't matter what. And if sports is something they like, the high elementary ages and the middle schools is the most important place to get that started. And we're not doing much of that. Most of the kids who are participating are going somewhere, are on a team, but they're going to Indianapolis or Columbus to compete, which I'm not sure is a positive. That is something I think that would be something we worthwhile looking at. And encouraging schools to participate, or we as a community do it. I don't know where best.
One of the big dilemmas that we had in this was and one of the issues, if there's a youth commission, is precisely the extent to which you second guess the MCCSC. Because there's a whole list of things that we talked about that could be implemented at the MCCSC level, but.
Or it can be done with both all 3 parks departments, now there's 3 of them.
Right.
That some call coordination, and what the other problem is stressing such different schools of what's available in terms of space and so on.
What's the third part?
Well,
Here's, before you leave, can I ask, you said you had to leave.
yes, I do.
With this commission for youth that Michael's been talking about, one of the things, I'm not sure it's actually written in the recommendations or not, that came out some of the meetings, was having it be somehow a combined county-city commission.
It needs to be universal. We're gonna be able to attract not just MCCSC and Harmony kids, but also Richmond Bean Blossom. You have to look.
Well, one of the questions, does that dilute the power? We would like this commission to have status like planning commission, like redevelopment commission, like commissions that have some teeth. And if it becomes a city-county thing, does that dilute the potential power
Maybe
it
it
can
needs to
have?
be more multi-jurisdictional. The courts maybe need to be part of it, and Richmond Bean Los Melonsville needs to be part of it. It needs to be more multi-jurisdictional, I think, in order to make it have status. Maybe it needs to be, have a wing under courts, it needs to be, I don't know, I haven't thought that through carefully yet.
Well, since it is from the youth committee's recommendation, it really is the main recommendation. And,
Well, it would be nice to have an office for youth and then have a commission that goes with that. And where that should be is something we probably need to talk about, and that is countywide.
but I think, for instance, an office for youth makes, probably a budget attached and all that. Commission for youth doesn't need a budget. I mean, we're wanting
Well,
to do
it
this.
would have to have some budget at some point.
Well, maybe it's something, but what we're trying to do right now is not have a bogged down with funding questions or legal entanglements question. We want to get it established as soon as possible. The question is what steps we need to take
Well,
to do that.
I
We're
could be
better
under
off
step
just
ahead.
we're better off
Could
just
be
working with the city or we
prosecutor,
should
come
work
the
with the
other
county.
courts. Ask the judge here.
Doing what?
We had someone who was in charge of youth programming. There is a budget, or there was a budget established, yeah.
I think that there are a couple of them.
They cut that program? They, different ones.
Yeah. Yeah,
We didn't.
right.
I think your question needs a little bit of research. There's a lot of things that the city and the county do together, but I don't actually know any commissions that are city-county commissions. There's, the city commissions and the
Right.
county has its commissions. So what I would do, and I've written that down, is talk to our legal counsel and see how something like that might be worked out, and, if there's a precedent for something like that.
It could be done within a local, I'm sure.
I think that from the point of view, just speaking for the youth programs group committee, that we'd like to see this, as Rock said, be the highest priority. And I know that Fernandez is prepared to do a city commission for youth, but I think our preference would be joint. And it's just a question of getting together and seeing what the issues are for doing that.
I think that this is a very important issue because this report and the report that was just given, the county report, the study on youth, all talk about coordination and cooperation. And if we do not somehow rather address, working with the city and the county, the concerns of the young people in Monroe County, we have missed a golden opportunity. So however we structure it, I don't know the answer, but this is an opportunity that's gonna slip through our hands. We probably won't have it again for quite some time. If we do not somehow rather develop a program that is comprehensive enough to deal with children who come from Ellettsville, who come from Steinsville, I think that's wherever it is, Gosport, that part in Monroe County, in the city or wherever, because we deal with, these are all our children.
They come here on Friday nights.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that we can, I'm not prepared to make specifics, but
No.
I think the general question is, how do we move forward and what type of timeline to put together a commission? And again, speaking with John in some meetings, he's very happy to make it a joint
Right.
county.
Well, it has to,
And I think
I'm
that's right.
sorry, but it has to be countywide,
Sure.
because if you're gonna do something for the kids, you can't just do it for the city kids, you've gotta do it
Absolutely.
countywide.
That's right.
Because
Well, the
we're
city
all
kids are
part of the
county
same.
kids.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean,
And
you
he
can't
recognized
separate them.
but he's the one who, he had the idea to get this started, and it was wonderful, and we wouldn't be sitting here today if Mayor Fernandez hadn't done it.
But in any event, I think moving forward, I would guess that there's probably in different ways, a lot of different appropriations
Right,
that just need to be reallocated and regained a bit. Because he's prepared to do something with the family and, what's your department called? Community and Family Resources, thanks. And that would, have an office for it in that kind of setting.
One of the comments that led to this question was the involvement and the coordination with MCCSC. And as an outsider just coming in, it just strikes me as a really key part of this whole deal is, from a taxpayer's point of view, a large part of my money goes to Monroe County School Corporation, and they have a huge amount of resources in terms of physical resources. We're talking about finding a building for sports, intramurals, all of that stuff, they have the physical resources. And it strikes me that getting them on this program, on this commission is essential.
Right.
To avoid duplicating, building another building, we've already built all these things.
Well, this is, the first step is probably as simple as getting the commissioners to job together. But then figuring out the role and relationship there. The commission would establish a really incredible bully pulpit. And again, one of the notions being not just to follow through on certain ideas that we have, but to celebrate the successes that are there. And I think that's a message that we have to keep coming back to, because there are a lot of successes. And making that public and making this in the forefront of everyone's mind, we see as an equal plank, if you will, of this commission.
You have a comment?
I like Mark Hood, I'm just an outsider, not a committee member. But I think the idea of a recognized commission, and I hesitate to use the word status, but I think it was used, but to give it pronounced credibility, there's an untapped market, in my opinion, of volunteers and senior citizen, older people who can go into Highland Park like I do and be involved in the lives of children. And I think in my neighborhood, talking to senior citizens, too many think we're out, well, too far out of school, too unrelated to it. But I think that the status, if you will, I hate to use that, of having a recognized commission, that something that can approach people with credibility and say, we would like for you to be involved. When I ask people in my neighborhood, go over to Highland Park and talk to the principal and ask if you could volunteer, they won't take that initiative. But I really think if there was some way to touch the lives of people who could really be, see a tremendous need here. I don't want to belabor this, but your point about, and I don't know exactly how you said it, that there's an element of parents, I hate to say low income, parents from dysfunctional families perhaps, who are intimidated by school. Mm-hmm. They won't even run in the front door, they won't walk in because they think they're too far removed from it.
Right.
And it's up to the community and the education system just to welcome it and to do everything they can to break down these barriers and say, we want you, you may not speak very well, you may not write very well, but we want you involved in the lives of this school and these children. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to reach that. I'm a big brother to a little boy at Crestmont, and I see a very dysfunctional family, but I see the potential of a little boy. He's just incredible. I love him like I love my own daughters. And that's what it takes. The closer you can get one-on-one, small groups, I think that's fine. If I can get 2 or 3 kids together at Highland Park and work with them, fine. But the closer you can get one-on-one, again, I'm belabored, but the little boy I worked with at Highland Park had this repeated phrase, week after week, I'm too stupid, I'm so stupid. And I said, don't just say that anymore, Robert, don't. And then he would slip it, and he broke himself by saying, I'm stupid. And I went into that school one time, worked with him, and I'd done something carelessly, I something. I said, boy, I'm really stupid. He said, you're not, he said, you're not stupid, and I'm not stupid. And I gave him a hug, and I said, you're right. So, and he's broken himself by saying, I'm too stupid to do this. Mm-hmm. But the closer we can get to one-on-one,
we agree.
we got a chance.
Couldn't agree more.
Do you think involving seniors is an area that we've missed in these recommendations?
I haven't had.
It's actually one of the recommendations, though.
Right.
I just know what
The
my
volunteer.
experience is
Right.
in my neighborhood. And it's like pulling teeth. And people retire and they think, I'm not retired, but people think, it's time for me now to enjoy life. And I try to, we're in a whole different picture now. We're not living in times like we were 30 years ago. Times have changed, And it's time for adults, I think, to get more involved in the lives of children, and we have an opportunity.
How would you
When I
rec-
was first matched up with this little boy, I was really uncertain about this. But he and I we're really close, and that's what I want.
Do you think that the notion then of a coordinated school volunteer program, particularly
Well,
for
I think it does a lot of wonderful things there. I mean, I think, when I first sat down there, I thought, well, the youth commission, until I heard discussion about it, saw the importance of pulling this stuff together and giving it some pronounced credibility.
So you're
People
back to
can-
reinforcing the notion of the commission.
But I'm anxious to get down to parenting resources and things like that, I was on the school redistricting committee, and when I hear people say, put those kids on the bus from Crestmont, send them to university school, personally, I think that's the worst possible thing you could do if you expect their parents to be involved in the school. The worst thing those parents would see on that school is university, because they're just too far removed from it. Now, I'm not gonna get in a big argument about
Good choice.
Very encouraged,
We-
even mentioned.
For
you were-
14 months, we beat our heads against the wall, and now for the next 14 months, I'm gonna have people beating my head. But, I think if we can reach, and we're gonna have more and more low-income people, we're gonna have more and more disenfranchised parents and their children if we don't reach out and help them. And, boy, I think anything we can do and it's gonna take people more sophisticated and educated to reach out to them if we care about them, because too many of these people in public housing they're afraid of the official system. They're suspicious of activities of government or the school system or whatever. They don't have the sophistication to do even some of the elementary things and maintaining, and we really, and this is difficult. I don't know quite how to impact my students' parents. But I really think I've got my foot in the door a little bit.
Thank you. I think what you're saying
No,
reinforces a lot of our notions.
Hi, I'm Liz Isaacs, and like Jim, I wasn't on a committee. A friend of mine told me about this. And I've worked with at-risk populations before. To touch on what Jim said, do you think it would be a good idea to also target some of the at-risk areas, whether it's Crestmont, Highland Park, or other areas, to build that trust? I was involved with the Tenants Association up at Crestmont and the Family Center up there, and that it takes a long time to build trust. And fortunately, I was able, to do that with some, but a lot of them, of the people of the Tenants Association, really, they want to see a change, and they do care about their children. They may not know how to ask the questions or whatever, and maybe, that's a way of doing it. If we're gonna do countywide and all that.
Just, as Kathy summarized that right, targeting at-risk areas for mentoring or
Yeah, mentoring or parenting.
that?
I think it makes good sense to target with the volunteer programs in the schools too, obviously.
Mhm.
Fair use and
Right.
gonna need it.
Right.
I'll second that.
You know what's important about what we've just heard? They talked about real people. The programs that we talk about are wonderful, but the people who are actually served, this is what is most important. If you don't mind, I'd like to share just one thing with you. I had a lady in juvenile court, and we'd spent quite a bit of money trying to do something with her son who committed a number of delinquent acts. And after about 2 years of trying to help her son, she came in and looked at me and said, "The system has failed. The system has failed me." And when I came down about 15 minutes later, I was absolutely livid. No, we'd done everything we could do. And then after I thought about it, she wasn't talking about the court. She wasn't talking just about the court. She was talking about her frustration with trying to deal with government officials, schools, and I'm sure she was talking about all of those things. So as we do this, as we talk about these programs, it's nice to put a face in there.
I agree.
And a person.
Yeah, and if talking to these people, you know, regardless of their education or socioeconomic levels, they'll tell you what's going on. And, you know, it's very important, you know, to listen. If we're going to be their voice or their ears or whatever, yeah.
Let's go back to the question we were on. What else have we missed? Anything else? I see several things here that are of use, good ideas. Anything else?
Well, this isn't an idea, and I appreciate her remarks about the sports element. But certainly we need also to reach children who are not, they're not in sports, and they feel the pressure of being left out. And I know this is very complicated because all emphasis is on sports.
Oh, I didn't mean on sports.
No, I know that, but I'm saying, I saw this letter a few days ago from 4 or 5 little girls at Highland Park talking about the Highland Park writing club, the Highland Park Writing Club. And I think I know that school inside out, but I didn't know I had a writing club. An after school for children, I guess. And, you know, we have to find some way to lift up children who aren't athletes also. They also have the right to
While we don't have it listed here, there are a variety of different ideas that we have that we think a youth
No, I
commission
wasn't,
could follow up on.
I saw you had written, I think, sports/other activities. And
But, I mean, a good example of that's Wonder Labs. I mean, we've spoken
Right.
with them, we're trying to encourage a whole variety of programs on a multidimensional basis.
Well, and then doesn't the Art Center offer a lot of diverse, like, arts programs for youth?
Exactly, Liz. I mean, what we said at the beginning, you've got all of these hundreds and thousands, in fact, of resources. It's getting the awareness out and trying to encourage involvement.
It's also very long, this schedule, it's filming more than the parks.
Right.
And I would also encourage people to look at the Mitigating At-Risk Situations Committee's report, because they focused a lot of their recommendations on youth, and they were specifically targeted to at-risk youth, both elementary school and middle school youth. So there's a lot of overlap between these committees, and I think, you know, we can implement a lot of these recommendations together.
Something that we might have missed was transportation problems that the kids have. Isn't it true that there's no city bus to Bachelor? And so kids can't participate in after-school programs unless they have rides from their parents, basically.
And also the city bus system shuts down at an early time in the evening, so evening activities, I don't know where they're going. Kids are stranded at Rhinos all the time.
But to be realistic, they can get where they want to go.
But I think we could increase.
Yes, we can increase them to get where they maybe should be going.
Exactly.
But they can get there, believe me.
And again, I would encourage you to look at the Mitigating At-Risk Situations, because we know this is a huge issue, and they did have one recommendation where they recommended looking at an alternative transportation network.
That's a
For
specific one.
both, yeah.
And that's
they've
the
done a
value
lot
of
of work
having
on
a
it.
youth commission, because you can look at the little boy that I work with, he would not have been able to play in the after-school basketball league if my wife had not made a commitment to get him to Crestmont and back and forth fast. The family had that time had no telephone, had no automobile in the family. And we just slept that off. And same thing in the redistricting. People think people can run all over the community. You can't if you don't have a way to get there.
Carl Salzman did nail this one on the head, and there is a whole report as Kathy said, in that one, and they're looking at it. This was one of his major concerns.
You're about to set that this afternoon when the groups report.
Anything else? Shall we then go back over the different ideas that we spoke about and talk about priorities, implementation, pluses and minuses of each of those? And we've got some people here, I wish Iris hadn't actually, but I mean, do we want to spend more time talking about the idea of the commission? Joyce, I mean, is this a proper forum to do that in, or should we just postpone that and let you and John and others do that behind closed doors? I don't want to.
We don't do anything behind closed doors.
Well, I should say, without the television cameras on you quite like
No.
that.
I think everyone's interested in seeing what happens. I think we got so many commissions in the community that one thing we have to stay focused on is our goals and have some short-term goals so we can accomplish, so that everyone feels like it's moving ahead and go forward. I think it's a time though in the community when you have a lot of, just because the county just received the juvenile report, you have a lot of these things coming together at the same time, which is unusual. You know,
Right.
So I think you'll have a real movement to
Right.
put something like that together.
From my point of view, just to reiterate what I consider to be the bullets that stimulated this idea, unless we can raise community awareness, nothing happens.
Right.
And the best way to do that is to celebrate success in a very, very prominent way, and then correspondingly identify those problem areas which are susceptible to improved coordination, communication, and then action. And absent a way to effectively do that, the notion is that all of these ideas may be great, but it's a moment in time and they're lost. And the reality is that the commission is therefore a way to perpetuate a momentum. And without it, I will go on record, at least, since I don't have anything to lose, saying that we will have missed a golden opportunity and we will fail as a community to achieve whatever level we could have otherwise achieved in terms of making the whole village support its youth. It's just my strong opinion, and there we are. Andy?
We have a tree commission, we've got a bicycle commission, we've got all kinds of commissions. Youth commission should probably be one of the very priority commissions in our community. Whether it's combined county or city, or whether the city does it or the county does it, it has to be done.
Well, I think one thing that would be helpful today was for this group, and you had mentioned earlier, to come out with an actual timetable for this, to make as part of our recommendation what the date is that we want this youth commission for youth established by.
That's where you're talking about these goals, and if you don't set up those timelines and goals, it's very easy, all of a sudden 3 months are gone. 6
I agree.
months are gone.
I think that's exactly right,
And
Joyce.
it's Joyce's point's well taken, because I've been on enough committees throughout the years that they have nothing against the ideas or the people involved, that they have these wonderful ideas about doing this new program, but they really don't think things out. They look at the whole picture instead of the short-term goals. If we're gonna be realistic for this to work, we wanna get it done in a timely manner, but we also need to be realistic and thorough about it.
Tony's point was a good one. When you really stop and think about this strip fair, it's almost an embarrassment to think we have a bicycle commission and a tree commission, but we don't have anything for youth when you really stop and think about that. Do we care about these precious children or not?
Well, I think what we're hearing is the notion is, yes, we need it. I like the idea of establishing a timeline for any
Yeah.
specific recommendations. Is the notion that it should be joint city-county? I mean, is that a fair?
I think it is.
Well,
And what I hear in this group, and I just say it is because the city of Bloomington took lead, but we do have 2 townships and another school district, and they must be a part of this.
We agree.
Must be.
I mean, the only caveat with that would be if it delays the establishment of it, or if it dilutes the power of it.
Well, fair enough, yeah, fair enough. But let's assume that if there's a strong recommendation and a push, that the powers that be can get together and solve that, because it should enhance it, not diminish it.
Oh, yeah, well, what's a realistic time date, do you think, to have something like this implemented by?
We can get a resolution in next month for the city. I don't know about the county.
Vani, did you say July
I
1st?
said June first,
June 1st?
no later than July first. You know, if you're committed to it, then getting the resolution and having it set up is not that difficult.
Well, then what we could ask for would be a resolution to implement it, and then within a certain amount of time determine the real mission, because you're not gonna be able to determine and agree on the mission within that quick a period of time realistically.
How about a resolution for the school systems now? What kind of timetable would that be? Anybody here?
Dr. Drummer's in one of the other meetings. Can you check with them?
Yeah, grab them out.
I mean, realistically, won't it take a couple of months, even if it gets established in principle, to determine the mission and the composition? Because it needs to be multidimensional.
I was speaking of June and July first to have these resolutions, so we know you can have it.
Right. I think
it
June,
takes that
to
much
a
time.
resolution to do it in principle, yes. And 3 months later to have a framework
Right.
done.
That's, at least by September 1, it seems to me.
It's doable, and
Sure.
secondly, we've made a lot of movements toward city-county cooperation anyway.
Right. In
So,
fact, it's very good.
Remember that city and county budgets happen in the summer.
We're working on
So-
city budgets right now.
Yeah. We'll have our craft factory next 3 weeks, we'll have our,
Along with setting a timetable, do we want to actually delegate any tasks?
Well, I mean, I think, I'm not sure what you have in mind, but
Well, I, for one, along with Dr. Pizzo, I'm sure would be happy to put in some research on a cooperative youth commission between the city and county. So I'll say I'll work on that. I will research what we can do.
we'll get started with Dan Sherman and see if we can work up a resolution in the next couple of weeks.
I think that would be
The
excellent.
mayor and commissioners have a regular meeting time together.
I think that one of the things that we might do today is identify what we think the composition of that commission should be. I mean, if there are any ideas, this is a moment for community input, because it does need to be multidimensional.
I noticed there were a lot of children, of youth.
I would also,
The model commission that was in the appendix. And I don't know how large a community it was. Almost, page 36.
yeah, I would encourage everybody to look at the appendix. Karen Lanning, who's a graduate student in journalism, did a lot of research into different youth commissions around the country. And just kind of what membership they had, how they got their funding. And that's in, I think, the second appendix, so that's a starting point.
Similar size city to Bloomington, is it?
20,000.
20,000.
20,000, yeah, I think it was just.
20,000.
Oh, yeah, that's small.
Didn't we actually make,
I did see it, yep.
in the, didn't we actually make a recommendation in terms of composition in the,
Did we?
yeah, it says on page 8. It talks about commission 10 to 12 members with at least 2 to 4 places designated for youth representatives. Because we examined those reports that research that y'all did.
But we also would welcome any more input.
For sure.
We
That's fine.
kept it pretty general to start with.
Well, clearly, the city and the county each need to appoint some members. I would recommend that someone from the juvenile justice area be appointed. I mean, that's just my,
The school systems obviously come
school
up.
system's gotta have someone.
Yeah.
You know, the city and the county, with the county's Youth Services Bureau and the city within Parks and Recreation and their Youth Programming Bureau, probably already have a process that we can work toward. The people who are already dealing with youth directly. I guess my main concern about this commission is that the people on the commission deal with youth directly, and that there are a large number of youth from areas of the city and county, not just, we go to Ellisville and we actively recruit, we go into the different schools, actively recruit kids. And people from these different, we're talking about at-risk and at-risk areas of town. Folks, every kid in this town is at risk.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
Absolutely. It's not like.
And every area of town is at risk. I see kids in trouble from every socioeconomic level and every geographic area here in town. If we're seriously going to get the community involved in this, we need to be able to get a nice comprehensive commission of everyone involved.
I think that's a
However,
good
some
point.
of the children end up in the juvenile system and others do not.
Exactly.
And they have similar problems. I don't have a real strong feeling about this straight, I do have a strong feeling about the youth commission. My question is this, would this commission be concerned with the recommendations? That's what I wanna know,
Which recommendation?
the other recommendations we have. I know that one of the recommendations is to establish a youth commission, and the others are programs and so forth. So what would be the concern, in other words, what would be the concerns of the youth commission? And your research, what have they generally focused on?
That's a really good question. This one seems to be really using youth and incorporating youth. An example I can think of is the city's art commission, which may have some artists on it and it may not. I'm not saying that I'm taking a position that it should be heavily populated with youth or not, but I think that really needs to be discussed. What does the commission really want to achieve and how?
I think my feeling is that there's a minimum baseline, and then
For youth?
for what the commission would want to achieve. And then after that, there are a variety of things that would be optional depending on the actual grant of authority and funding, because they go hand in hand. But, I mean, the minimum to me is to act as this coordinator of information and then a disseminator of this bully pulpit.
Okay.
I mean, that
And-
doesn't sound like it's 50-50 youth. And
I don't see it as 50-50.
We're not suggesting, if you look at
I don't-
50-50.
that's what this model is.
I'm not, we're not
We look-
suggesting that at all.
All right.
I think 2 to 3 is probably better than 4, personally. I mean, that's just my opinion, although 2 to 4 was the consensus of the committee out of 10 to 12. But I think if it's going to be 10, it needs to be 2. If it's going to be 12, maybe 4. But with almost every one of the things that we've talked about here, the youth commission could play a major role. Because they can be the ones that bring together the trainers for the mentoring.
Okay.
I mean, that training program should be under the auspices, for example, of this youth commission.
And I think the youth commission is actually in the implementation plan of quite a bit of our recommendations, especially something like community youth information boards. If this is a clearinghouse for information, the youth commission should be a major force behind helping get this started.
Michael, a lot of this also sounds like administrative work and data gathering and sorting,
It is.
but it seems to me that if such a commission is really to establish its legitimacy and prominence in the community, it also needs to think about actually sponsoring programming. I don't know if you envision that as a role for it or not. For example, I could see the youth commission sponsoring the youth exposition that you described.
Absolutely.
And having a role in the identification, maybe even in the governance of some of these gathering places that you talk about. It needs to be, posters, with a big event sponsored by the City County Commission on Youth.
If you look at the details within each of the bullet points, you'll see that the commission, as Kathy said, touches almost every one of them. The information boards, I mean, who's going to do it? I mean, if it's going to be done, it really needs to be done at that type of level.
I think one of the problems we have in this community is having too many. For instance, you have the Youth Services Bureau, you have all of these things in place, and that dilutes because you have so many different missions. And one of the problems needs to be to sort out who's doing what and how this umbrella
There's a lot of
fits.
overlap.
Yeah.
We call that eliminating redundancy, and we couldn't agree more, because I think the problem though, that what amazed me as an outsider coming into this was the fact that there are so many different vested interests. And anytime you suggest a bringing together or a consolidation, it ruffles feathers.
Sure.
And you know that much better than I, but boy did I get burned a couple of times. So we'll just have to see what that means, but coordinating it, certainly, wherever you can eliminate redundancies, do it. There are just so many ways. One comprehensive training program for mentors, we think is a very good way to eliminate lots of redundancies and establish a minimum criteria for mentoring.
Is there someone from this commission who's going to the Phoenix project meeting this week? I don't know if we're aware of the Phoenix project.
Right, we are.
Because this is exactly what they're trying to do as well. In the 5 years that I've been working with youth in this community, I've seen maybe 10 of these kind of commissions or ad hoc committees try to get together to coordinate. And then the minute someone talks about sharing resources or God forbid sharing funding, it breaks apart again.
Right.
So,
John, you've stepped in, so why don't we throw out the quicksand? One of the ideas that has come up again is the Youth Commission, which we've obviously discussed. And there's actually a recommendation that will come out that both the city and the county by June establish a joint resolution in principle to do it, and by September with some of the frameworks involved. And I took the liberty of saying that you supported the idea in principle and were in favor of either city, but preferably city-county.
I think it'd be great. I think we could do a supporting resolution certainly by June, July, and then work together with the county over the summer to refine the mission statement and administrative systems and the whole 9 yards. I think that it's important that it is a city-county initiative. My only concern is making sure that wherever its home is that it has the adequate resources to administer the initiative so that it doesn't fall by the wayside. And I'd certainly be willing to make sure that happens. If we can get the resolution in place prior to July as we go into our fiscal 98 budget process with the city council, we can make sure that the resources are there if it's going to be at the city. The only other comment, though, is I picked up on the end of Steve's comments about programming. I think sponsorship is different than program implementation. And I'd be nervous about program implementation because then the commission gets in a position where it's competing for limited resources with all the different service agencies. And that's something that at the city, my administration is trying to get out of that process. We went through the whole evolution of our human resources division that started out as a coordinating group, a policy analysis group, a catalyst group, then sort of went off into the direction of direct program and service implementation, and now we're trying to rein it back in so that we focus more on what Brad's talking about, is pushing forward, real from a policy side, trying to eliminate redundancy, trying to build capacity throughout the service provider network, but to help them and not compete with them. And I think the commission could really be helpful in benchmarking things, making sure that gaps are filled, and helping agencies coordinate, but not compete with them for resources.
And that was something we definitely discussed in our committee, and I think we came to the same conclusion that it would be good to sponsor programs but not provide programming, because there's a lot of great programs already out there, and there's no need to compete.
How would this fit? Maybe I missed this discussion, and if you've already talked about it, fine. With the recommendation last week on the juvenile justice group,
It's almost exactly the same.
Can this come together
Yes.
and,
Very much so.
I mean, there's the whole juvenile probation recommendations of last week's meeting that I think we probably would not want this group to get too heavily involved in. But it seems like there's potential synergy here that the missions might come together
Well,
fairly closely.
They do, because the recommendation on the provision of programming during after schools is one that's definitely addresses that for, in our report, that's the Juvenile Justice Task Force report. Parenting is recommended, they call it professional parenting, I believe. Coordination of mentoring services wasn't mentioned, but they do talk about that need that children have. Also, the report on the juvenile, of the Juvenile Task Force was for a chronic truancy program, which fits perfectly with the increase in adult participation and community support for the schools. There was also the recommendation for a group similar to the Youth Commission. It's not titled that way, but really to raise the consciousness level of the community. And in my view, what that group would be doing, and I think the Youth Commission could too, is not sponsor a particular program for people to do or not do something, but to sponsor speakers and workshops to address issues that young people have, drugs, alcohol, peer groups, whatever. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to keep alive for us. And I don't see that much difference between
Well, it seems like as we move forward then, in terms of refining mission and administration and all those kinds of items, you know, the councils, city and county councils, the commissioners, the mayor, and the judges and the folks who work on that juvenile justice project, we ought to all get together and figure out the best way to do this so that it's supportive and synergistic and not do, you know, a lot of duplication.
I think you're right. I think, and certainly, I think that your leadership in getting this set up was really important and impressive to the council, because when we asked for the money to undertake our project from the Criminal Justice Institute, we were able to get $20,000 from our council. And we're studying the same group of children.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the same issues and problems. And it was just interesting that there was no coordination between the group that did our study and the committee that came out with this, and how the recommendations are so similar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we could really, the community could really benefit from combining the recommendations of these two groups.
Listening to all of this, and one of the questions we were focusing on, John, was composition. I'm gonna make a proposal that would change the recommendation here. And if the committee would have, let's say, 10 or 12 members, what I would recommend to get broader participation of youth is a youth advisory board for the commission. And only one person who's selected by that youth advisory board sit on the commission. So you had one youth that represented a broad diversity of youth opinion, so that they would, that the function of the youth representative being to communicate and then build an opinion and then represent that. Otherwise, I think you do a disservice to getting a broad cross-section of youth involvement. It's just a notion, but it speaks to what we're talking
And
about.
that's a good one, because like I know when they had was it last year or 2 years ago, where they had the youth summit. It was a couple of years ago, in response to the stuff at People's Park and other issues that youth were related. They were from parents of youth that were involved. They, the feedback that I got, that it was a very positive experience, regardless of the outcome or whatever, because they got a chance to speak. So I think it's a very idea to get, you know, to have a youth advisory board.
With one representative.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Any other way, and you're going to limit your cross-section to.
Right.
And perhaps divert it from some of the other aspects of the commission. So.
Well, maybe two. Just because one, it's hard to talk
Youth
when you're young. it's just hard to talk in a group. If there's one young person in this group, it would be very hard for them to speak up.
That's fair.
And so, it's a little kinder to have two.
Kindler and gentler.
As far as some of the other composition of the commission, does it make sense to make sure that it includes, and here I'm unfamiliar with what programs exist, but for example, youth services board, is there a head of the youth services board? There's a person.
Yeah. Doesn't that make sense?
Wouldn't it make sense for that person to be on the commission rather than to spend even more time hearing the reports from the commission and then having to answer back, and to really actually get the people who are already involved in providing the services and involved to make this, get them on the commission to start with?
It may or may not, Mark.
Okay.
The turf things become so brutal so quickly.
The way that city
Yeah.
commissions work now is the council appoints so many and the mayor appoints so many. And if, the county would appoint so many, and hopefully they would look around at the spectrum, because there are so many different youth agencies, and pick which leaders from those agencies would best work on the commission. I just wanted to say one other thing about the school thing. This is going way back, and I certainly agree that the school should be really, really involved. But in terms of their facilities for activities, I know that their gymnasiums are like overbooked now. So we really can't look at that as a place for activities, because there's so many,
Well, that's the point though, that's the exact point. There's so much overbooking, there's so much overlap, nobody's taking control of that and trying to coordinate that. So if the schools were actively involved with this commission and say, okay, we're gonna have this much programming, we're gonna do this, that, and the other, you need to go through this commission.
I'm only talking in terms of space. Don't look there for space, because
Okay.
they, for after-school programs, because their gyms are highly utilized.
What you're talking about for gym usage, I mean, the rest of the space is very, very underutilized.
The gymnasium.
Maybe, what schools are you speaking of when you say
I
there's?
think all
Well,
of
according to
them
Parks
are,
and Rec,
yeah.
they say that they cannot find, because they come to us at Harmony School looking for our gym, because they say they have exhausted every.
I don't think the Highland Park gym is overbooked by any means, because our kids can't stay after school.
Are we assuming that the schools are permitting people to use their facilities?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
is the gymnasium.
We are?
Yes.
Well, the boys club, girls club, Parks and Rec definitely seem, boys club and Parks and Rec definitely seem.
I remain unconvinced.
I was simply addressing space needs.
I understand.
Well, I think an interesting point is kind of coming out of all this is that we really need the support and cooperation of the school systems.
I couldn't agree more.
Not just lip service to it.
So many of the issues in here as far as parenting skills and daycare, and I mean, so much of society is looking to the school as daycare and all these other things that we don't, our parenting skills have diminished, and we look to schools more and more to fill a role that they aren't designed to fill. But,
Seems to indicate that they need to be redesigned.
What I'd really like to do in a minute is say, let's table or set aside the youth commission. Any other comments on any of the other ideas?
Can I make one more about the youth commission? Just one more?
Good.
I don't think that we've really decided that it's just city, county. I think that we really need to decide whether it's gonna be school systems too.
They should
As far
have
as
an
the-
appointment to.
Right.
Well,
I
maybe
agree.
they should be asked to pass a resolution. If they don't, if they're unwilling, it's a school board
Or
law.
the school board should have to be.
Yeah.
that way.
And maybe they won't,
And they're
but they will have
appointed-
been asked
They're
to.
appointed to somebody in CP.
Yeah.
And
May recommendation.
I like Gary Clay, I like that group of people, but it's not here. This is superintendent, superintendent level. We need somebody who's gonna make decisions. Very true.
Well, again, my experience has been that there are a lot of turf wars going on, and I suspect that there will be one between the MCCSC and the commission. I think you can expect it, but
Who's driving the cars?
I don't know what to say on that.
I'm not saying argue, but I'm just saying it's gotten to the point now that the school board needs to take an active role. I think the school administration, I think the superintendent, by his participation, what I've seen is research that. It's gonna take the school board, and you're right, it is
Right.
a battle.
It will be, because to a certain extent, if someone's looking in an official capacity, it creates a watchdog. And you're going to second guess. Now, they have to accept that proposition, one way or the other, if it's to exist, it seems to me. It's just to address the issue, and I think you make a good idea. Request a companion resolution from the MCCSC.
Can I make a comment about, that respond to your comment? And I agree that the schools are probably, have the right, not the right, but I agree that they probably express the view that it's not their job to do blah, 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 blah. But we all take these children as they come to us. And if children in our society have certain problems, then the institutions that serve those children will have to get busy about addressing those problems or asking for help. So it's time for us to stop, mealy-mouthing about what we can't do because of dysfunctional families, because the children don't have this and don't have that. They are what they are. And they're here, and we must do something about it and recognize that we can't go back and teach the way we did in the 30s.
I agree. And I think back to Rock's point, all the rest of this is fine, but the schools have the majority of the impact on the children. They have the facilities, they're there. The community needs to be able to reach in there and utilize underutilized facilities.
In the not too distant future, they will be parents of children.
That's right.
Right.
And hopefully the school system will see that as a resource and not, I mean, I.
Let's not anticipate problems.
Your watchdog thing struck a key. I think there's a certain concern about that as a parent of an 8th grader. But hopefully they will see this as a resource.
I think they will, but it's inevitable that the commission, if you're looking at community youth issues, will want some of their resources. And there'll be a dialogue. I'm sorry, Perry.
One thing that we did not discuss in our group, but I think about it because of the survey, on page 41, if you look at the question 6 about participating in organized activities, 21% report that they go to church-related activities. And we did not talk about how to involve the churches in the community in this kind of effort. And I wonder if people think that there's some potential there for people who may not have been involved to try this avenue.
Oh, yes.
I think they're really important and they ought to be involved. I met with the minister this week to talk about how we could do some of these things. His group is real interested in the whole civility initiatives as well as the youth issues. But I think they're a very important part of the community structure. And we try to invite many of the churches through the Interfaith Council to participate in this process. We have participation on sort of off again, on again basis, but as we get into implementation, I think they're a very relevant part of the community that ought to be involved and asked to participate.
And also there's so many church schools these days. More and more parents are putting their children into private schools, whether it's Catholic schools or Pentecostal or whatever it is. There's a lot of schools these days.
Do we know how many people are homeschooled in Monroe County?
No, we don't. And we not only do not know how many, well, I shouldn't say that, I don't know the answer. We certainly do not know what kind of homeschooling they're getting.
Well, one of the things acknowledged, even by people who are fans of homeschooling, is that the children tend to lose 2 things no matter how good it is. The socialization and laboratories, because you can't have that at home. I wonder if we shouldn't also include under the religious aspect offering something for people who are homeschooling their children.
And some are doing a great job too. Some do a very good job. You're right, that's a very big issue. But tied to homeschooling for some parents is truancy. Some parents withdraw their children from school when their children are truant. So whatever we're talking about here, we have to talk about truancy. It is the greatest problem that we have in this community with our children. Other than drugs.
Any other comments on any of the other initiatives? Sorry to keep harping back to that. I think our time is up. I think we've really hit the highlights, and there's some very good ideas here. Thank you all.